Hey, all right, day 18. Just got to Minneapolis. I'm going to show you the some of my interview with John Vrattle from yesterday, but I'm going to cut in here and there just to explain a couple things. There you go.
My name's John Vrattle. I'm an attorney. I have been an attorney for about 40 years.
Talk to me about your history in politics. You were a state senator? Or?
State senator, right, in Kansas. Well, really for as long as I can remember, back to my childhood days, I've always been interested in politics and government. Really more government than politics. Because I don't see myself as a politician. I was in the Senate for 14 years. 10 of those years as the vice president of the Senate. I was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, vice chairman of the Education Committee, vice chairman of the Budget Committee.
Okay, just a little background on what we were just talking about. Right before this, we were talking about how people in Congress sometimes will have a bill like on education, but they'll slip in something else totally unrelated about abortion or welfare or something so that they can say, hey, you voted for abortion or you voted for welfare, when really it was an education bill. So we were talking, I just asked him about that in terms of Kansas politics.
Kansas has a provision in its state constitution, and many other states have the same provision, that prohibits having more than one subject in a bill except for an appropriations bill. And it's really a good provision to have.
Sounds really good.
Now, it's only as good as the people who are enforcing it, and it's not always enforced. But that was one of my pet projects while I was in the Senate, and I sort of became known for advocating the enforcement of the two subjects provision in the Constitution. While I was in the Senate, for most of the time I was in the Senate, there really wasn't a great difference between Republicans and Democrats.
Okay, here in this next clip, John's talking about the current budget that the Governor Brownback pushed through Congress, and it's trickle-down supply-side economics. In other words, decrease the taxes on the businesses and on the wealthy, and they'll invest more money into their businesses, and everyone will be happy. It's been debunked by every economist with any repute. And so John's talking about the concept and why it's flawed and what will happen to Kansas now because they've just passed this bill. It's great. I mean, just to hear a Republican criticize trickle down economics it's just cool to hear. So check it out.
The strategy is dependent upon that taxpayer reinvesting the tax savings. It's totally dependent on that. And in reality, the taxpayer doesn't do that. He puts it in his pocket. He takes his family on a vacation. He spends the money, but it's not on the things that will generate tax revenue. Kansas now finds itself in a position where our debt rating with Standard & Poor's and Moody's has been reduced 3 times over the last 4 years. We've gone from a $600 million surplus in our budget to a point where in the next 2 years, the projections from our legislative research department are that we'll be in the red. I think the governor honestly believes that this is going to work. I really believe
This is sort of
he's sincere.
People who don't know their history are destined to repeat it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's I'm liking your version of republicanism.
What's wrong with me?
I'm like.
I'm clearly a Republican. I believe in limited government, keeping government out of my life as much as possible. I believe in low taxes. I believe in strong national defense. Um, but I also believe in taking care of less fortunate people in our communities. Good politics promotes that type of behavior that gets you elected rather than the type of behavior that helps your fellow man. And far too often, in my experience in politics and in the Kansas Senate, um, I saw people who would completely change their positions on an issue just because they were afraid that it would make it more difficult for them to get reelected. In other words, they were more concerned about getting reelected than they were about making good policy. And that, to me, is reprehensible.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts. We were talking about how politicians often don't do the right thing because they're afraid that they will, lose the next election or lose votes. Anyway, he was talking about a time when he was a senator when the concept of sugary drinks was pretty popular. You know how bad sugary drinks are for you. And so he introduced a bill to in his words, tax sugary drinks out of existence. And he got Coca-Cola and Pepsi came in with 50 different lobbyists, millions of dollars, and killed his bill in committee. But even though it was killed, it was the right thing to do. And even though he was unpopular, it was the right thing to do. Hear what he says about this.
Policy-wise, it was a good thing for me to do. And so I did it.
Sure. I mean, the things that it would affect diabetes, for example.
Children at school.
Okay, for some reason we started talking about Vietnam. I think I brought it up. There's some sort of weird tangent. But hear what he says about Vietnam. It's just a very, rational, educated perspective about the war in Vietnam. Check it out.
I always felt like we never would have gotten into Vietnam had we just studied a little bit of history. Because history would have told us that we were never going to win that war.
Yeah.
The French had tried, the British had tried. They'd always been failures. And what was it that made us think we were going to succeed when everybody in history had failed?
There's a certain, I recognize a certain amount of American, is it hubris?
Hubris, right. Yeah, we can do it when nobody else can.
Yeah.
This last bit was really cool. I was just kind of had the camera rolling. I was packing up, and he kind of encapsulated my whole documentary. Check it out.
I can tell you from my experience that the statement is not limited just to politics or Republicans, but anytime you generalize about a large group of people, you're almost always going to be wrong.
All right, there you go. You saw some footage. That's what I've been doing for the past 2.5 weeks. All right, just I'm on. I'll tell you tomorrow where I'm off to. Have a good one. Bye.